Whiskers was a lovely tabby cat. She lived with old Mrs. Jenkins in a cosy cottage. The cottage was small, with a thatched roof and a rose garden. Inside it was warm and inviting, with a fire always crackling in the hearth. Whiskers loved to curl up on the rug in front of the fire. Mrs. Jenkins would often stroke her soft fur while reading a book. Life was peaceful for both of them. They were happy in their little world. One sunny afternoon, Mrs. Jenkins noticed something different about Whiskers. Her tummy seemed rounder than usual. "Whiskers, darling," she chuckled. "Have you been eating too many treats?" Mrs. Jenkins was worried. She thought Whiskers might be unwell, so the next day she took her to the vet. Dr. Brown examined Whiskers carefully. "Well, Mrs. Jenkins," he said with a smile, "Whiskers isn't ill. She's going to have kittens." Mrs. Jenkins was astonished. "Kittens!" she exclaimed. "How wonderful!" Mrs. Jenkins hurried home, eager to prepare a cozy nest for Whiskers. She found an old basket and lined it with soft blankets. Whiskers purred with delight. She knew this was the perfect place to have her babies. As the days passed, Whiskers grew bigger and bigger. She ate more than usual and slept even longer. Mrs. Jenkins made sure she had plenty of milk and her favorite fish. Whiskers became very affectionate. She loved to rub against Mrs. Jenkins's legs and purr loudly. It was as if she was trying to tell her something. One evening, Mrs. Jenkins heard tiny meows coming from the basket. She peeked inside, and her heart melted. 3 tiny kittens were snuggled up to Whiskers. The kittens were absolutely beautiful. One was a tabby like Whiskers, one was black and white, and one was a fluffy ginger. They were so small and helpless, their eyes still closed. Whiskers was a natural mother. She cleaned her kittens and fed them with her milk. She watched over them protectively, her purr a soft lullaby. Mrs. Jenkins was overjoyed. The kittens brought so much joy and laughter into the cottage. They were like little miracles, filling the house with their playful antics. Whiskers and Mrs. Jenkins were happier than ever, their little family complete.